Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Happy Saturday for everybody that's out there. How's it going? Yeah, so a little what if today that I wanted to kind of just discuss and share with everybody regarding the Pixel 6, the Tensor chip, and Project Fuchsia. And could there be a link between these things? And I just kind of wanted to like spitball my idea. Jonah, hello, welcome. I was wanting to spitball my ideas on this because I was just thinking about it. You ever think about something and then it hits you like a bolt of lightning? You're like, wait a minute, like there's something that could be happening here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And so I just kind of wanted to shed some light and see what you guys think about it, right? So in no way is anything that I'm about to say factual to the extent. The different things I'm going to be talking about, like the Pixel 6, Fuchsia, there are some facts in there regarding those things, but as the link between them, it's pure speculation. I just kind of want to drop that and just kind of make sure that's known. All right, so anyways, let's just kind of talk about the Google Pixel 6, right? Excited for the phone. It's coming right around the corner. We got the Apple event. We got the Made by Google event. And so once that is unveiled and it's in the hands of the masses, we're going to be seeing a lot of videos that's going to be talking about several things, but the main one, the Tensor chip, right? Google's chip known as Tensor, which it coincides with TensorFlow, which obviously has to do with the programming that Google uses with AI technology and everything like that. So those things go hand in hand, right? So that's one side of the board is the Pixel 6, the Tensor chip. We look at the other side of the board and we have Google's newest OS that they're still developing on called Fuchsia. Right now it's called Fuchsia. We don't know what it's eventually going to be called, but right now it's called Fuchsia. And Fuchsia currently right now runs on the Nest Hub first gen, right? So originally it was called the Google Home Hub, and then afterwards they changed it to the Google Nest Hub. And so what is Fuchsia, right? Like people are kind of getting confused as to what Fuchsia is. Okay, so one of the core parts of Fuchsia is the Zircon kernel, right? Or what basically was built as little kernel. It's called Zircon. It is a micro kernel. Okay, so this is what controls the OS, right? On Android, those who know, Android is Linux based because the kernel is Linux, right? This is the difference between Android and iOS. iOS is built on the Unix system, and the kernel system that's built for Android is Linux. So we know that Linux is a bit sluggish. Okay, sure, Google has done a tremendous job optimizing Android to be pretty fast on the Google Pixel phones and everything like that, which, obviously, we see that, right? With every iteration of the Google Pixel phones, and we see how well optimized it is and how fast it is. That's the reason why that, in my opinion, the Google Pixel phones get so much appraisal from those people who use it, is because you have to think, while you're looking at the operating system and how well it functions and how fast it is, and some people will be like, oh, big deal, it's not really that fast. But think about what kernel Android is using. It's using Linux, right? And Linux is pretty sluggish nowadays compared to what we have going on, right? Like Huawei threatened to solely focus on their own operating system, Arc OS, Hongmeng OS, whatever they want to call it. What's up, man? So they claim that Arc OS, Harmony OS, Hongmeng. I keep cycling through the names because Huawei doesn't really know what to call it. It's supposed to be like 100 times faster than Android. And they did show some demos of it actually being faster than Android. And then people wonder, like, does Huawei have the magic key to make an operating system that's just like blazing fast? And they kind of did, and Google was already well aware of that. Harmony OS, right? In China, I think it's called Hongmeng though, and it was going to be called Arc. But the people look at it and they're like, they had the magic key to it. But Google already knew what that magic key was, because Fuchsia it's been in development for years. I don't know if anyone knew this, but like it's been around. At least when I first heard about it, it was in 2014. Was when I first heard about Fuchsia. And then more news popped up in 2015, and then it went silent. 2017, more news popped up about Fuchsia, and then it went silent. And now Fuchsia is popping up again. And so with Fuchsia, and I said this in a morning tech talk video after I dropped my kids off to school, just thought I would do like those types of videos. By the way, let me know if you guys want more of those types of videos in the morning, and I'll start doing them. But I talked about it, right? So like when we look at Android and how Android is a cake, right? And we look at Android being the cake itself, and then like different OEMs putting their user interface with Android as the icing, but it really wasn't exactly in that format, right? Like Samsung would take the source code files from Android and kind of just built one UI. So one UI was technically like a software based on Android with Samsung's own spin on it. And you have Fuchsia, which tends to be the Zircon kernel with the OS from Google, and user interfaces can be placed on top of it, but that's exactly what it would be. Think of it like modular, like it's a modular setup, right? Kernel, OS, UI. Whereas currently right now in Android, it is kind of that way. Kernel, Android, yet Android can be changed up the flavor. I guess that's the best analogy then. Android can be changed up with the flavor with one UI. That flavor can be swapped out with, whatever, Oxygen OS. That flavor could be swapped out with something else, That's really what it is currently right now. But with Fuchsia, it will be that tier, right? Kernel, OS, user interface. And the reason why they want to do it that way is because they want to get rid of fragmentation. It is, some people get very, very bummed out when they have a phone that's not going to get the next version of Android because it is, the OEM doesn't want to do it, right? So if Google had full control over it, if Google could just send out the Android update or the OS update to every device that's running Fuchsia, it would bypass the need to wait for Samsung, Motorola, and all them to update your phone. And older phones can be supported still, right? We always question it. We're always like, this phone is not even that old. It's like 3 years old. It should be able to get the next version of Android based upon the hardware components inside of the phone. Can it handle the next version of the operating system? And, to our disappointment, we already know this. For those who follow along, pretty much know that it's at the OEM's discretion. It's always at the OEM's discretion and the carrier's discretion. And everyone likes to point the finger at Google, but Google is not actually at fault for the fragmentation. I mean, they have a hand to play in it only because they licensed Android to Samsung. They licensed it to, at the time, LG, when LG was around, they licensed it to Motorola. But really, it's up to these companies like Motorola, Samsung, Xiaomi, and all them, which devices they want to give the next version of Android to. Because a lot of them know it's more lucrative for them to just build new hardware and sell that. You cannot sell Android. Even if you license to use Android in your hardware, you can't sell an update. You can't charge someone $5.99 to get the update to your phone, right? You can't. That is part of the agreement between Google and all these OEMs, is that they can use Android, they can use it in their hardware, but they cannot sell it. When you're buying a Samsung Galaxy S21, you're not buying the S21 with Android 11. You're just buying the S21. The software in it comes free. It's not charged. So, if you think about it, that's why a lot of devices don't really get updated. And then, of course, like the Pixels look really good because they get 2 major OS updates and 3 years of software support. So Fuchsia is going to change all this, because if they have a very fast and capable and powerful system with the Zircon kernel. And then you have Fuchsia, the operating system. And you're only allowing Samsung and them to build a user interface to overlay on Fuchsia, but not take Fuchsia and make it their own. Then it bypasses Samsung saying, okay, the Samsung Galaxy A54, which is going to be a future device, more than likely. But it stops them from saying, like, okay, we're not going to update this to Android 15. We're just going to make the Galaxy A55 with Android 15. Now, it stops them from having that type of control. If it stops them from having that type of control, then it allows devices to literally be on the same version of the operating system, which bypasses the need to have to fumble around with different features that you're going to implement in the next version of the operating system. I don't want to call it Android because it may not be called Android. It could be called something else. Android can have a life expectancy from A to Z, and then it's ended there, and then Fuchsia takes over from that point on. Because the fear of those people who are like, Fuchsia is going to eradicate Android here in the coming future, like soon. It would be a cluster fudge to completely just eradicate Android right now. Android is just so well known and it's trusted by a lot of people, the same way as iOS is trusted by a lot of people, that to bring Fuchsia out and to say, this is what we got new for you guys and let's get rid of this, it's like having a person who smokes cigarettes quit cold turkey. It's just not going to happen. You have to ease them into something else. And that's what I think that they're going to do with Fuchsia, is eventually Android A to Z, once it hits Z, they could pitch it as an evolution of Android and then bring out this new operating system, which is going to run on smartphones. It's going to run on tablets. It's going to run on Pixel books and Chromebooks. It is going to run on smart fridges. It is going to run on smart displays. It is going to run on home smart security systems like the Nest camera, the Nest doorbell. Like, it's one operating system for a bunch of IoTs, including smart devices such as smartphones, tablets, laptops, and even possibly we may even see the evolution of a Google computer, like an actual home desktop computer by Google. It's not far off from what they're doing already with Fuchsia, so might as well. And I think that the Pixel 6 is the early sign to kind of show the link between the two, because Google ditching away from Qualcomm chips to solely build their own chip obviously will coincide with them building their own kernel for an operating system that they're working on. So everything is starting to kind of go full circle. They're going to do the hardware. They're going to do the software from head to toe. They're going to take control of the software so that way there's not this big cluster fudge of a problem called fragmentation, because fragmentation is bad. I will agree with most people out there who get frustrated. Why does this device that was only a year old not getting Android 12? But these devices that are just as old as my device are getting Android 12. Like, it is bad because they want to implement things. They want to implement features. They have to make sure that it works on current version, and then it has to be backwards compatible to older versions of Android, which is not a simple thing. It's not like we built it for Android 12, so it's going to run automatically on 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. It don't work that way, because how things are set up for Android 12 is slightly different than what's coded for Android 11 and what's coded for Android 10. And if it works on Android 12, it may not work exactly the same way if you had it on Android 10. So this is making things backwards compatible. Now, if you're going to make things backwards compatible, it is absolutely annoying if you have to go as far back as Android 6.1. Ever notice that when you install something of a feature or whatever, and then it tells you that it is capable on Android 6.1 and higher? Like, you go to apkmirror.com and say there's a new feature in the Google Camera app. And so you want to sideload that onto your phone, and then it tells you compatible with Android 6.1 and up. But it does that for a reason, because it's actually slated to actually work on Android 6.1 and higher. It has been, I guess you can say, the word tossed out for it. It's been calibrated to work on those versions of Android up to the most current. It would be so much easier to push new features out for these devices for them to actually be able to use these new features the functionalities of it if there was one operating system and it was always up to date every year on 500,000 phones, like different types of phones, not like 500 individual phones, or 500,000 different types of phones all had the same operating system. It'd be so much easier. And you could still have your Samsung look. You can still have your Motorola look and all that other stuff, because that would be the user interface. So they will no longer take the source code of the OS and build their OS with their user interface on top of it. But they would just build the user interface to overlay on top of the software itself, which also means that there are things that Google would want implemented into every smartphone that Samsung puts out. Samsung can't just pick and choose which ones get it because it's in the operating system, and their user interface has to work with the operating system. If they try to tweak or twerk anything around, it's just not going to happen because Google will have full reins. And I think this is the reason why that Google is having Fuchsia as a lockdown operating system instead of a completely open source like Android. And a lot of people look at that and they think to themselves, of a lot of conspiracies, right? And I'm going to kind of like start knocking those things down. Because the fact is, labeling Fuchsia as the only operating system that you're going to make a claim that the government is going to use to track every citizen in this country, if you solely believe in that, then you have to believe that Android is already doing it, and you have to believe that iOS is already doing it. If you're going to stand there and say that they're not and give 1,001 reasons and in a very intellectual way of how they're not, then yeah, I would seriously think you need to sit down and reevaluate a lot of things. We don't need to be tracked by any agency in this country. I'll tell people right now, straight up, we don't need to be tracked because we give out our own information. We geotagged where we gone and had that chocolate lava cake. We've tagged our location when we had our first date with a woman or a man that we just met. We share photos of the things that we're doing in a specific timeline and upload it to social media so people can see a timeline of our day. And those photos have locations tagged in them in the metadata file. So when you think about it, you're already leaving a breadcrumb of everywhere that you're going to the day-to-day. You're doing it on your own. No one's twisting your arm. No one's breaking a finger. No one has a gun to your head and telling you that. You're doing it on your own. When people used to sit there and say like, "Oh yeah, you know what? The CIA is data harvesting from Facebook. They're stealing." They don't need to steal. That word really has to be stricken from the vocabulary. They don't need to steal anything because we're giving everything on our own. A lot of people say, "I don't want to be tracked. I don't want no one knowing where I'm at." Then get off the internet, get off the grid. That's the only way that you will not get tracked. Is you got to cancel credit cards, you got to close bank accounts, you got to delete all your profiles on different social platforms. You got to go ghost. If you want to use any type of technology, you have to use the Moses 5000 tablet, which is a stone, a chisel, and a hammer, and chisel your message in there and then hand that tablet to somebody so they can read it. That is the closest to technology you're gonna use if you want to get off the grid. But then again, a lot of people really don't care of what is online about them. There's nothing specifically special to us individually other than our minds and how we think. But that's totally up to you as a person. If you want to sit there and believe everything that you see out there, that's by your choice, But yeah. So Fuchsia is not this government tool that's going to, lock you in and steal all your info and brainwash you. No, because the internet does that already. It's happening right now. If you think about it, if anything that I said made sense to you and you're starting to kind of see where I'm going with this and you're almost thinking the same way as I do, it just did it. Your mind was just altered in that second to think the way that I think, just because of the things that I'm sharing. Which is why I said in the beginning of this live stream that most of the things that I'm saying is not factual. There's certain things about Fuchsia and Pixel, those facts are laid out. But the link between the two, it could just be me just having one of those genius moments that are just like what I call the idiot genius, right? A genius thought for something that's not meant to happen or is not going to happen. Companies do that to target marketing, but now the government has big tech companies in their pocket. Yeah, double-edged sword. Is if you don't agree, then you can't use the devices or services. Yeah, it's true. It's the same lines along credit reporting. We didn't ask for that, but if you need financing, that's the catch. Yeah. But you can't just single it to just Fuchsia and not say that Android and iOS are innocent of this. Now I know there's diehard Apple fans that are going to say, no, Apple is so secure. They would never. I'll tell you right now, you'd be surprised what they do. You'd be surprised. So I think the decisions of Google to build their own chip, to align it with TensorFlow, name the chip Tensor, pretty much now have full range control over their hardware going forward. I honestly feel like that Fuchsia was the beacon that kind of gave us a clue from way back in 2014 that Google was eventually going to do this. They're going to stop relying on third-party OEMs to build hardware. And we saw it in 2014 when they talked about Fuchsia. That should have been the early beacon sign. The downfall of the Nexus line, where Google stepped away from doing Nexus phones, and then the development of the Google Pixel phones. That was the second clue in my theory that this whole thing was going to play out this way. And then the third clue is when Google decided that with the Pixel 6, they were going to unveil their first in-house built chip for their in-house built hardware. And that's where we have it at. That's why I have these things linked. I was going to talk about it yesterday on Sneed's Live, but we just got like all over the place with T-Mobile and the data breach and all that other stuff. I know I was like really trying to get it in there for that little moment that I spoke. Yeah, I just figured I would just talk about it in this live stream today. And just kind of just, share my what ifs. I mean, because I'm into comic books. I love the what if series. I don't know if anyone ever followed the Marvel what if series, right? Like, what if Wolverine never left Alpha Flight? What if, what if, Galactus destroyed the world, right? And I thought about those comic books and I'm like, what if I did a what if series if like this was it, right? Like Pixel 6 and Project Fuchsia, there's a link between them, right? Because of the Tensor chip and Google wanting an operating system that is proprietary to Google, which means that Google has full control over it. Let's see. I'm fed waiting for the new generation of Pixel phones, tablets, and more. So they're coming. I know that the Pixel Watch has been delayed until 2022. So there is a watch. If anyone knows or didn't know, there is a watch that Google is producing. And the plan was for the Pixel Watch to launch side by side with the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro. That's why we had mock-up renders of the Pixel 6 with a watch. They were supposed to. Launch together. However, setbacks again. So Google has delayed the Pixel Watch until 2022. So we may see the Pixel Watch maybe quarter 1, maybe at I/O 2022. We may see that. It may launch alongside, and I don't know. Hopefully they bring the A series back to, a spring launch. Or I honestly think that the Pixel phone should launch in the summer, right? Samsung pretty much has like the spring area. Apple pretty much has the fall season. So let the summer be Google, the funnest months of the year, right? Because, the holidays is during the fall and winter season. So Apple has that. I don't know. You guys tell me what you guys think. Do you guys think I'm onto something with this Fuchsia and Pixel 6 linkage? Do you really think that, I'm onto something when I say that they've been giving us clues all this time. That eventually that the idea of being rid of that dreadful thing that's plagued the Android community for so many years, known as fragmentation, was finally going to have an answer done to it. Do you think it's a great idea that there's an operating system that Google circulates that pretty much runs on smartphones, tablets, computers, laptops, and other IoTs? Or do I need to be locked up in the nut house? Dude, they got to straight jacket me in a padded room right now. Because I honestly was just started thinking about all these things, and I'm like, it kind of like falls in line. Like steps towards something great. And, you know, if you have a Chromebook and or a Pixelbook or the, you know, Pixelbook Go, you can literally test Fuchsia already. If you have the Nest, the Nest Hub, aka the Google Home Hub, the very first generation smart display, if you have that, it's already running Fuchsia, if you didn't know. I mean, you're not going to see any drastic, like completely different UI on that thing just changed up, but it is running. It is running Fuchsia. And while the operating system is the operating system, and that's what we see, the real true core of Fuchsia, if you wanted to see, if you could see the true core of Fuchsia, is the kernel. You would have to see. You would have to see how the kernel performs, the micro kernel, because it's actually a micro kernel, and it is so much faster than the Linux kernel that we use with Android today. You know what? I honestly feel like that there will be another Pixelbook that does have the Tensor chip. I would think, you know, I'm going to say 80% sure there's going to be one. Why wouldn't Google capitalize on it? If they don't, oh well. But I'm 80% sure there will be. It probably won't be this year or next year, because the Pixelbook Go came out, what, 2 years ago? It came out when the Pixel 4 came out? Yeah, so maybe next year at Google I/O we may see another Pixelbook. Because before that, the other Pixelbook came out in, like, I believe 2016. So you had a 2016, you had a 2019. Yeah. Okay. So then another 3 years from that will be 2022. So maybe next year. Maybe next year we'll see a new Pixelbook. They might call it like the Pixelbook Pro. My Google Nest Hub did an update a few weeks ago. It's the first edition. I'm not sure what updated. So like I said, you're not going to really see a drastic difference in the user interface. But if you're able to get into the settings and go into About for, like, you know, for all the info regarding the software that's on there, and look and see if the kernel has a different name to it. If the kernel has anywhere in its naming Zircon, then yeah, it switched up to Fuchsia, because Fuchsia wouldn't run a Linux-based kernel. Are the new Chromebooks that just came out have the new chips in them, or these? No, they're not going to have the new chips. If it's built by Google, it will. The Tensor chip is proprietary to Google hardware only. They're not going to put this chip in a Asus Chromebook or an Acer Chromebook or a Dell Chromebook or a Samsung Chromebook. They're not going to put it in those. So those are going to rely on Intel or AMD. Only Google hardware will have the Tensor chip. They're not going to put this in anything else. It's kind of like with Apple and their A Bionics. Their A Bionics chips are not going to go anywhere else. Their M1 chip, they're not going to let, you know, Dell or any other computer company use their chip. Right? The M1 chip only goes in Apple computers. Same thing with the Tensor. It'll only stay within Google hardware. So if you want to experience the Tensor chip, yeah, they're going to buy a Pixel 6, 6 Pro, future products of Google, future laptops from Google, that's the only way you're going to experience the Tensor and how the Tensor chip can do. I think Fuchsia could replace Android and maybe Chrome OS, but I don't think that they'll make a completely new OS. I think there will be many better changes under the hood. That's a good thought right there, Jonah. Because literally that's what I was telling people. Like right now, the name of it, Fuchsia, it's Project, right? It's just like when they had Project Whitechapel. Everyone knew it as Project Whitechapel. And then we got the part number for the chip, which was GS101. So we started calling it the GS101. And then they unveiled the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro on a sneak peek on the store.google.com. And in there, they finally unveiled the name of the chip, which is Tensor. So I do think that Fuchsia is, because it's still in project form. It's not fully fledged rolled out. And it's beta tested right now on the Google Nest hubs. Yeah, the major changes is the kernel, which is what's under the hood. They're gonna move away from a Linux-based kernel to their own, from the ground built up microkernel called Zircon. And that's where, so they can still call it Android even afterwards. They could have this replace Android by the time we get to Android Z, and before we follow up into the next loop generations of Android. And this could be it. I'm not going to call it Android 2.0 because, I mean, Android does have, numbers behind it for each generation, but they can still continue to call it Android. I mean, Android is a household name. It is a very well recognized operating system that was built by 3 gentlemen who had a dream and eventually sold their dream to Google, who then marketed this thing as their own operating system and went in a completely different path than what Apple did. Apple kept everything pretty much to them. Google ventured off this way with Android, licensed it to so many different companies, and the progression has been different ever since, even though the progression is kind of mirroring each other, if that makes any sense. They should call it Nexus OS. That'd be funny. That would be funny and cool. But I think the reason why I feel like they will use the name Android with this is just because it's so recognized. It's just like if Nike developed, a revolutionary shoe and they decided to call it something else. They know that it's not going to sell as much as if they slap the Nike logo on it, And so I feel the same way about it. We'll just see a very different behavioral pattern of Android, one that we've never really seen before. It could obliterate jank and jitter and stutter. We can start seeing things in a more like a tunnel vision fluidity progression of stuff. I'm kind of tripping over my own tongue here, trying to put into words what I'm seeing, right? Because right now you open up an app and sometimes it opens up smooth, sometimes it opens up maybe a millisecond slower than another phone can open it, and you can start to see the differences between them. But when you have something that is like buttery, right? Not even just regular butter, let's call it garlic buttery smooth. You will see it. And it's tunnel vision focused. The fluidity of it is just going to be immaculate, just amazing, beyond anything. It's just going to flow. It's just going to work. I think that's when we'll know that Fuchsia has in fact replaced the traditional old school Android. Anyways, y'all, that's what I have for y'all today. And I do want to thank everyone who came in and hung out. Thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate you guys. Hopefully you guys smash the like button because it does really help me out as far as circulating this around. Shout out to Sneed again for having me on yesterday. Really, really had fun. Really appreciate it. Shout out to the SMT community for being so welcoming. As always, you guys are amazing. And at any time that I'm able to go on there and join Sneed and be on the live stream with him and be amongst all of you, y'all are just so cool. So big shouts out to you guys. Shout out to Carlos and everybody else, part of the crew. appreciate you guys so much. You guys take it easy. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I love you guys very much. See you guys back next week. I might go live tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure. But if Google would replace Android with Fuchsia, do you think that Google would also give it to other companies like Xiaomi? I think, okay, before I go, that's a very good question, Jonah. That's a very good question. So that's what I'm saying, is that I feel like that this will be it for like Xiaomi and every other company. They will get it because it will allow this time for Google to control the update process instead of leaving it in the hands of OEMs to do it. So that would that's the point I'm making about it, is that it would obliterate fragmentation that plagues the Android community. Because now it's not up to Samsung if they want to update the A52, right? Google puts out the source code files for the next version of Android and for the security patches that they release. Therefore, they will send this out and it will go to every device because you're logged in on your Google account. It will go to every device, don't matter who manufactured the phone, and you will get the latest version of Android or whatever OS they're going to call it. That is the whole point behind it. And the Pixel 6 to me was just the third clue to say that this is exactly what they want to do by them in-house building everything now and not relying on Qualcomm. Because like as much as everyone was like, with this new chip, one of the things that we might see from Google is 5-year support on the device instead of 3. Yeah, that was part of the hindrance, was relying on Qualcomm for their chips. Now that Google doesn't need to. Now, of course, it's going to be weird for all the other ones. But at the same time, too, while it does allow Google to update a lot of these, if it is legitimate that a phone from Samsung cannot support the next OS, then it would be at the discretion that it does not support it. It will no longer be about OEM saying it could do it, but we're not going to. We're just going to build this new model and sell it with the new version of Android, right? It obliterates that too. So that and fragmentation it gets rid of. However, if a phone is at its time, because hardware does have an expiration date, then it will actually legitimate be that reason why it's not getting it, the next version of the OS. Hopefully I explained that well. But all right, guys, I'll let you guys go. Take it easy. Peace. As always, aloha. You guys be good. Be safe. Love you guys very much. See you guys next week. More videos to come.